Hi students, it's Professor Tyberg. I have another PowerPoint for you. This one is called The Art of Quoting, and it's following up on the last week's lesson on integrating your quotations with signal phrases. This one is called The Art of Quoting, and what I want you to do with your essays and your quotes is to construct a quotation sandwich by introducing and following up on quotations. So we're using a sandwich as a metaphor for this strategy, and here's a picture of a sandwich that I used to eat when I was a young man, but now I don't eat anymore because they're not healthy. Okay, so remember to sandwich your quotes, and what I mean by that is quotes must be both chosen wisely and should be surrounded with a frame explaining whose words they are, what the quotation means, and how the quotation relates to your text. So the top layer of the sandwich you can think of as this introduction to the quote, and then the middle part of the sandwich, maybe the meat, is the quote itself, and then the bottom of the sandwich is the explanation of the quote and then the analysis of that quote. So here are some templates for introducing the quote. So this is the top layer of the sandwich. I'll read the first one. As the prominent philosopher X puts it, comma, blank. And then you would put the quote. Next, in her book, blank, and that's the title of the book, X maintains that blank. The third one is, writing in the journal commentary, X complains that blank. And the final one is, X agrees when she says blank. So feel free to use any of these templates to set up your quotes. This is the top layer of that sandwich. Here we have the bottom layer of the sandwich and templates for explaining quotations. So the first one is, in other words, X believes blank. Next, in making this comment, X urges us to blank. And then finally, the essence of X's argument is that blank. So each of these templates will help you explain the quote in your own words and then move toward that analysis of the quote. So here's an example of an ineffective sandwich. It's not quite there, and I'll read the example. Susan Bordeaux writes about women and dieting. Quote, Fiji is just one example. Until television was introduced in 1995, the islands had no reported cases of eating disorders. In 1998, 3 years after programs from the United States and Britain began broadcasting there, 62% of the girls surveyed reported dieting. I think Bordeaux is right. Another point Bordeaux makes is that ... So up before the quote, there really is not enough introduction to the quote. The writer does not set the reader up for that quote. Then it's just this long quote. And then after the quote, there's no explanation of what the quote means. The author just agrees that Bordeaux is right and then skips to a new point. There's no analysis. So you want to pause and analyze that quote and show how it fits in with your argument. So here's a better example. You can see how much more thorough it is. And this slide is called Example Quote with Effective Sandwich. And here it is. The feminist philosopher Susan Bordeaux. So now we know who Susan Bordeaux is. She's a feminist philosopher, which is important because maybe you didn't know who Susan Bordeaux was. So you should do that for your sentence. Tell us who the author is. Susan Bordeaux deplores Western media's obsession with female thinness and dieting. Her basic complaint is that increasing numbers of women across the globe are being led to see themselves as fat and in need of a diet. Citing the islands of Fiji as a case in point, Bordeaux notes that, quote, until television was introduced in 1995, the islands had no reported cases of eating disorders. In 1998, 3 years after programs from the United States and Britain began broadcasting there, 62% of the girls surveyed reported dieting. And here's the in-text citation, 149 to 50. Bordeaux's point is that the Western cult of dieting is spreading even to remote places across the globe. Ultimately, Bordeaux complains, the culture of dieting will find you regardless of where you live. Bordeaux's observations ring true to me because many women I know, regardless of where they are from, are seriously unhappy with their weight. So you can see that there's a developed introduction to the quote, the top of the sandwich, and then the quote is woven in successfully with a signal phrase. and then the quote is explained, and then the writer goes into analysis and connection. So that's a great example. Okay, to summarize the art of quoting, you need to, quote, sandwich your quotes by introducing them, explaining them, and then connecting them back to your text, connecting them back to your topic sentence and your thesis statement. And the source here, it's a famous source. It's called They Say, I Say, published by Norton in 2012 and written by Gerald Graff. So I hope that that was helpful, that metaphor of the sandwich for your quotation, and I would like to see you do that in your next essays. Okay, have a great day.